I grew up in Amherst, Wisconsin, a town of about 700 people at the time. My dad worked on the railroad. My mom took care of my brother and I until we got into school, and then she worked at the school. Kind of a normal, small town. There was a river behind the house, so hunting, fishing, camping, playing sports. The activity probably influenced me a lot was being in the Boy Scouts. That was a big influence my dad was really passionate about. He had a very positive experience when he was a kid, and he led our troop in a really positive manner and had a lot of friends with that I grew up with that were in it as well. And so we did a lot of pretty fun, camping, canoeing, hiking, learning first aid skills, learning outdoor skills, cooking, leadership, things that really had a positive influence. I went to college at the University of Wisconsin at Eau Claire. It's in the western part of the state. It was a state school with about 12,000 students at the time, and I chose it based on being a couple hours away from where I grew up. So it was close enough where I could get back, but not too far where I'd still be able to stay in touch with family, and didn't really have any idea in terms of what programs to pursue. I enjoyed all the classes my first semester, and nothing was really, I wasn't passionate about a direction, and I started taking some art classes. I played rugby on the team there, which was a good team. And I also, at that point, I enlisted in the Wisconsin National Guard. I got sucked into ceramics initially through Mike Weber and just the energy and the passion that he had for making pots. And that was so consuming that took me through my undergrad. When I got into graduate school, one of the biggest gifts I had was falling back in love with drawing, because as a kid I grew up drawing, and through Joe Patrick and David Dunlap I got into I fell back in love with drawing. And so now of these pieces I make now, I have it's the best of it all. Creating a three-dimensional form from a chunk of clay to something has a physicality to it, an immediateness to it that's amazing. I still can throw pots all day. And then I get the opportunity to tell a story, to use imagery around this piece, which then has all dimensions. And also what I love about pottery is there's a universal aspect to it that I feel allows me to steer in and out of functionality. And pottery is literally a vessel to contain things, to carry things. And it's a story that it starts as my story, but it's our story. It's a human story. And so that's why I could throw pottery, I could hand build pots, and then paint on them and decorate them and play with the surface, different levels of, stamping things into it, creating collage with different decals, and then also hand painting, freehand painting with underglaze on it, and then also building out of it in 3 dimensions and casting clay on it. So it's just, I don't have enough time in the day to do the work that I want to do on pots and in clay. The choice in imagery for a lot of this work is based on stories and conversations I wish I would have had with family members that served in combat. And for probably a 10 or 15 year window, all I could focus on was the human aspects of the emotional experience of being in combat. I grew up in a family that I have 2 uncles that were Vietnam veterans. My grandfather was an ambulance driver in New Guinea in the Second World War. I have a great uncle that was at Pearl Harbor. He got sunk again in the South Pacific. Another great uncle, his brother was at Tarawa. He was shot through both his legs. and then their older brother was gassed in France in the First World War. So that you know, kind of family history, I feel like the slack ran out on me, and I chose or was chosen or felt the need to tell the human's emotional, spiritual story of the feeling of going, doing, and then trying to come home from serving in combat. And I would have friends that would say, why don't you try to make something beautiful? And I would laugh and I would say, I can't feel anything other than what I'm feeling and focus on right now. And I actually have gotten to a place, and I'm super grateful for it, to be able to make work that is more decorative. I create, you know, functional pots that are my version of landscape painting. And to me, it's like, through kind of backing up out of it, is like to recognize you become what you focus on. And so I was focusing too much on the horrors of war and the horrors of all the horrible things that people do to each other and we do to ourselves ultimately. And so once I realized that, I realized I needed to focus on different part of the story. And so being able to come into having, you know, some things like the buffalo or aspects of nature to focus on, and what those mean and have meant, overlays, you know, the historical and the contemporary meanings of these animals. But to be able to focus on that and look at that, there's like a two-way exchange of like meditating on an image of something, but there's a powerful exchange that happens of absorbing that energy or becoming that energy of what that is too. That is, I mean, it sounds made up, but it's true, and I can only say that from my experience. I was so kind of playing the one note of negativity for so long, I didn't have any other room for anything else. And I needed to find healing in that, to then be able to express and think about and focus on all the other aspects of being human. One of the major driving forces for me to get healthy is my daughter. And so when it became really apparent that my experiences in the military and how I was coping with them to the best of my abilities was not effective enough, and I could see negative aspects of me trying to manage to get through my day affecting my daughter, I continually had to find a next step of, I need to do more to find more to address this. And when I got back from the VA hospital, I made a series of work. 3 pieces are in this show with my daughter, directly with my daughter. And that was one of the most amazing kind of times to have in the studio at her age. She was just really excited and stoked to be there working with me. And I think to share that interaction with, and to be able to connect and work with, alongside my daughter, is a way that, you know, as that moment in time, she's older now, she's not gonna have that exact experience, but those really big things that can be really hard, I think this provided a way to work together on something. I use myself as the character in these pieces as a whole, not because I think I'm great, but for the reason of having the copyright to my story and my life. And that's just like, I'm the character in this, and hopefully through doing so, of exclusively using kind of myself, my story, my experience, by being so specific, that gives everybody else a way to relate to it through their lens, right? And I think it's also a natural thing, but I'm not trying to speak for other people. And so, you know, having these aspects of kind of the different flavors, the different experiences, the different aspects mixed into this, of having some like corny jokes, but also some like, there's definitely dark humor, and I think having that kind of range of emotional responses and visual aspects is definitely something that I hope as a viewer, like a lot of times, and I say that because as a viewer, people, because they're so, I think, respectful, they might feel it's like poor form or something, but no, I absolutely, you know, your experience with these is something that is yours, you know, and I do intentionally hope you find things that are funny amidst it. The advice I give when teaching to people interested in becoming an artist is, I think if you want to do it as your profession, it has to be something that you can't not do. Meaning it is every single aspect of your kind of driving life. The reward is in making the work for me. And I structured my life in a way to have low overhead so that, and flexibility to have time to make work. The downside is it's an unfillable kind of cup, unmatchable. There is, the goal for me is to make the work. And there's times when that has been literally all I have is a pen and a paper and a notebook in my pocket. But the experience that you go into, you can't see it. It's a feeling that is just absolutely magical. It is, it's unbelievable. And I think there's so many different aspects to it, and there's so many different directions you can go. The blessing and the curse of it is ultimately you have to find out what's going to be the right match and mix and direction of all that for you. And the way you find that out is by you start doing it. Every once in a while, especially once you get out of school, that's like you're in a pipeline, you're on a thing, there's people around you, there's, you know, your professors and your teachers, and that's amazing. And you wanna just love what you're doing. You wanna, you know, challenge yourself. You want to, I think, be uncomfortable at times. You have to be okay listening to, I think, feedback. And so there's different phases of different things. And then once you're kind of out of school and you're around that, then there's some hard times where you kind of have to figure out, you kind of wake up in the middle of the desert in terms of where you're figuring out why am I making this? What are my goals? What does success look like to me? You know, and that's these different times and phases that those are going to be different. The answer is going to be totally different. And so for me right now, for me to be in the studio making the best work that I can make that's the goal, that's the win. To continually grow, and I think to know that it's never too late to start to make that change, you know. Like you can screw up 100 times, 101st time, you choose a different path, that's amazing, that is incredible. And I think those little things add up to big things. And you know, I think hopefully the legacy of the work that I make is to record that and to record it in an honest way, and in a way that is, I think is fun to be with too. Like that's the thing, it's fun to be with, meaning it's got parts that are uncomfortable, but it's also got parts that are beautiful, and parts that are funny, and parts that are, like, without a doubt, like myself, I think.